Hello and welcome back to another week in new genre books. Thanks for stopping by, we're always glad to have you here. My name is Amelia and from Locus magazine. Today I'm talking about the top new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books being published the week of May 9th, 2023. New week, new books, let's go. Please like and subscribe. That is a big part of keeping this booktube going, and all you have to do is click the subscribe button. I've got links for timing if you want to skip to your favorite category, be it science fiction, fantasy, or horror. Starting with science fiction books this week, we have 5 science fiction titles to tell you about. From Nina Allan, we saw Conquest Out from River Run in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a science fiction mystery novel. In it, Rachel's boyfriend Frank sees patterns everywhere and gets obsessed with an alien war just before he disappears. A 1950s science fiction story may have clues. Like, for sure there's clues in this story. This isn't our first rodeo, but what sort of alien war and what does Frank's pattern recognition have to do with it? From Jen St. Jude, we saw If Tomorrow Doesn't Come, out from Bloomsbury, USA in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult apocalyptic science fiction novel. In it, Avery Byrne has secrets. She's queer, she's in love with her best friend Cass, and she's suffering from undiagnosed clinical depression. But on the morning Avery plans to jump into the river near her college campus, the world discovers there are only 9 days left to live, an asteroid is headed for Earth, and no one can stop it. You know, a lot can happen in 9 days. From Francesco Verso, we saw The Roamers, out from Flame Tree Press UK in trade paperback and ebook. This is a near-future science fiction solar punk novel. Nanites change a group of people into pull dogs, that's Pulldogs, who don't need to eat and develop a semi-nomadic culture with 3D computers and cloud computing. I think they're called digital nomads? I want to know how these people handle the hardware while moving around. The cloud computing makes digital storage easy, sure, but wouldn't 3D computers take up space? And if you're living out of a few suitcases, you'd have to think about it, is what I'm saying. From Jen Wild, we saw This Is the Way the World Ends, out from Wednesday Books in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult science fiction novel about a prestigious school's annual decadent fundraiser masquerade where a scholarship student with autism witnesses a murder at a secret meeting, and their escape is stymied by a lockdown due to global catastrophe. From Aubrey Wood, we saw Bang Bang Bodhisattva, out from Solaris UK in hardcover and ebook. This is a science fiction novel. It's 2032 and the worst cyberpunk future. Kira is gigging her ass off to keep the lights on, but her polycule's social score is so dismal, they're about to lose their crib. That's why she's out here chasing cheaters with Angel Herrera, a Luddite PI who thinks this is the big sleep. Then, the latest job cuts too deep, hired to locate Herrera's ex-best friend. They find him murdered. Next up, horror, we have 3 titles in horror this week. From Joanne Harris, we saw Broken Light, out from Pegasus Crime in hardcover and ebook. This is a fantasy horror novel in which a woman going through menopause begins to recover past memories and powers she's hidden her whole life. A bold and ambitious thriller exploring how women can feel invisible as they grow older, and what happens when they decide to take back control. New York Times bestselling author Sarah Pinborough called it bold, brave, and timely. From Lisa Brideau, we saw Adrift, out from Sourcebooks Landmark in trade paperback and ebook. This is a thriller horror novel about climate change and a woman with amnesia who learns someone desperately tried to erase her former life in order to hide a secret. Brideau's website describes her as a writer, a sustainability policy nerd, and a former aerospace engineer. This is her first novel. From C.E. McGill, we saw Our Hideous Progeny, out from Harper in hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a gothic historical horror novel set in 1853, re-envisioning Frankenstein with a queer twist. A couple determined to make their academic reputations set out to create life as Mary's long-lost great-uncle Victor did. Next up, fantasy, we have 7 titles this week. From Moniquill Blackgoose, we saw To Shape a Dragon's Breath, out from Del Rey in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. In it, the remote island of Masquapog has not seen a dragon in many generations, until 15-year-old Aniquis finds a dragon's egg and bonds with its hatchling. New York Times bestselling author Terry Brooks called it like this: imagine a world full of dragons where a newborn chooses you to be its caregiver. Imagine you have to go to a special school to learn how to train it. Imagine that almost no one at the school wants you there. This is how the well-written, compelling tale of To Shape a Dragon's Breath begins. From Genevieve Cogman, we saw Scarlet, out from Ace in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel set in 1793, and the French Revolution is in full swing. Vampires, usually rich and aristocratic, have slaked the guillotine's thirst in large numbers. The mysterious Scarlet Pimpernel, a disguised British noble, and his league are heroically rescuing dozens of aristocrats from our execution, both human and vampire. And soon they will have an ace up their sleeve, Eleanor Dalton. From Sebastien de Castell, we saw The Malevolent 7, out from Joe Fletcher in hardcover trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult military dark fantasy novel about wizard Cade Ombra, who joins a suicide mission against the 7 deadliest mages on the continent. From Melissa Blair, we saw A Shadow Crown, out from Union Square & Co. in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. To the Kingdom, Kira is the King's blade, his most feared and trusted spy and assassin. In the shadows, she works with Prince Killian and his shadow, the dark, brooding fae Riven, who sets her blood on fire. Together, they plot to kill a tyrant king. From New York Times bestselling writer Julie Kagawa, we saw In the Iron Vow, out from Inkyard Press in hardcover, ebook, and audio. In this young adult fantasy novel, after leaping through the portal to Evenfall, Megan and her companions find themselves in a terrifying new world where nightmares roam and glamour is nearly non-existent. As their magic wanes and the creatures of Evenfall rise against them, the race to find the Nightmare King grows ever more desperate. From Mark Lawrence, we saw The Book That Wouldn't Burn, out from Ace in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy novel. In it, the boy has lived his whole life trapped within a book-choked chamber, older than empires and larger than cities. The girl has spent hers in a tiny settlement out on the dust where nightmares stalk and no one goes. From Daniel Polanski, we saw March's End, out from Angry Robot UK in trade paperback and ebook. March's End is a multi-generational portal fantasy of strange magics, epic warfare, and deadly intrigue, in which the personality conflicts and toxic struggles of the Harrow family are reflected in the fantasy world they've sworn to protect. Lastly, we have one collection this week. From Nicholas A. DiChario, we saw Giovanni's Tree, New Italian Folktales, out from Bordighera in trade paperback. This collection is an important contribution to Italian-American stories. DiChario honors the traditional folktale form while taking the genre in new and exciting directions. DiChario's fiction has been nominated for the World Fantasy and Hugo Awards, among others, and his stories have appeared in many magazines and anthologies, including the best alternate history stories of the 20th century. And in our occasional reoccurring segment that I forgot about, I'm living in the moment here, I'm going to cover a collection by the wonderful Dora Goss, in case you missed it. This book is called The Collected Enchantments by Theodora Goss, and it came out from Mythic Delirium in February of this year. From the review by Gary K. Wolfe in Locus, this is an overview of Goss's career in poetry and fiction from her first published story, The Rose and 12 Petals, in 2002, to 2 stories and 13 poems original to this collection. For Goss, fairy tales are less a set of texts than a language she's become fluent in. Sometimes she doesn't even bother to explain which tale she's riffing on, as with poems that subtly invoke classics like The Goose Girl, Fitcher's Bird, or Melusine. Add to this the influence of Ursula K. Le Guin, which expresses itself in somewhat different ways, and Goss's own experience as a childhood immigrant from Hungary. And the result is a lyrical, resonant voice and a vision not quite like anyone else's. One of Goss's characteristic techniques is simply shifting perspective. That stunning first story, The Rose and 12 Petals, revisits Sleeping Beauty from no fewer than 12 viewpoints, including not only secondary characters, but the Hound, the Tower, and the spinning wheel itself. 2 poems, The Cinder Girl Burns Brightly and The Stepsister's Tale, reimagine Cinderella from the points of view not only of the stepsister who mutilates her foot to fit the slipper and later becomes a podiatrist, but from the fire in the hearth. The speaker in her poem, Girl, Wolf, Woods, sometimes identifies with the girl, sometimes with the wolf, and sometimes just with the woods. That is not how the story goes, you insist, says the speaker, sounding like Goss talking directly to us. But that is how I prefer to tell it. That wraps up this week. Thanks for spending some time with us. At Locus, we want to tell you everything relevant that's happening in the science fiction, fantasy, horror publishing space. We appreciate your eyes and ears and your likes and subscribes. Please do subscribe and turn notifications on so you know about this video when it goes up every week. The magazine and YouTube channel are a labor of love. We are at Locus Magazine or Locus Mag on most platforms. You can read more about the science fiction, fantasy, and horror field over at www.locusmag.com or support us on our Patreon. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books.